Your next statement was, but can everybody pay you for your service? So it's very important to know, if your business is going to be successful or not. In my case, I just didn't, like you said earlier, I didn't think I had a choice. So I would have had to make it work no matter what. But let me ask you this. Why is there so much interest in people wanting to start a business?
Well, this is really it's a really loaded question. It's a great question. A lot of the people. Here's some interesting statistics, which you'll find kind of amusing, probably. 78% of the people who want to start businesses are between the age of 40 and 70. What's even more interesting is that about half of those, or 50% or more, are between the age of 50 and 70. And what we've learned over the years is that a lot of these people have lived through life. They've experienced a lot of things in life, and they see things. They're upset. They're angry about the way they're being treated as a consumer, and they have in the back of their head they'll catch on an idea and they'll say, I'm going to fix that problem. And that's where we see a lot of tremendous interest today. The other part of that goes to a lot of people in business or not in business or are working for a 9-to-5 job in a corporate environment are burned out. I mean, they've had it. There was a lot of corporate politics they have to deal with. They're frustrated. They're tired of the 9-to-5 drag that they have to deal with day in and day out. And these are expressive people usually. They're very creative, and they want to express their creativity through a business. And that's why we see a lot of interest today in people who want to start a business.
Do you think that this big thing about becoming a millionaire, do you think that that's something that will drive people to start a business?
Well, that's another good question. I would say there's a handful of people that feel they want to become rich. But statistically, the majority of people who start businesses, the numbers like 4% of them will ever become millionaires in the early years. Eventually, there will be a higher percentage of small business owners who do become very wealthy, much more so than the average working American. Statistically, we know that the wealthiest Americans generally own a business or are somehow tied to a business. So that's part of it. But I'll tell you what we find. If you love what you do, and you've found a niche or you found a passion for something like you enjoy doing, like baking cakes, for example, or cupcakes or whatever, if you really enjoy it, you target the right market, you infiltrate that market, the money will follow, and undoubtedly you can become very, very successful.
Okay, let's backtrack a little bit. What are some of the common traits that you look at in your business owner when you're evaluating them?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things that we look for because everybody has a different background. And as I mentioned earlier, when we were looking at your background, we find a lot of common traits with some of these people that we deal with. And one of the things that we notice a lot and what we look for is how independent are they? How independent thinking are they? Are they resilient to contrast? In other words, when you have a business idea, just try this as a test. Try to explain to somebody what you're thinking about doing. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to get some pushback. Unless the person you're talking to really understands what you're trying to do, a lot of times the people that you confide in are not going to be agreeable with you. The other thing that we look for is how creative are you? Are you a creative person? Do you have something that's burning inside you that you're just trying to unleash? Are you a fixer? Do you like to fix broken things? And I don't just mean toys and gadgets and things like that, but when you see a problem, are you sort of a person who likes to try to figure out how to solve that problem? And I think that the other part of it is it goes back to that independence. As I said, independent thinkers are generally very creative, but there's something else that all of these people have in common. They have a determination to succeed no matter what. Now, some of them sometimes will come into a business or approach a business with rose-colored glasses, thinking that any idea they come up with is going to be successful. Well, that's not normally the case because we know from statistics by the 5th year, usually between 30 and 40% of businesses who start are still in business. And by the 10th year, only about 20 or 30% of the businesses who started are still in business. So the failure rate in the early years is not so bad. It's just that when you get beyond the third, fifth, and 10th year, then you start to see the failures begin to crop up. So you have to be able to be determined to not quit and not give up.
One of the issues I had is I didn't invent the idea of massage, but
Mm-hmm.
or massage therapy or body work. But what I did is I took what I learned. I had to become certified in the industry in the state that I live in, and I had to go through school and get a certificate, a license, and things like that. But what I found is that what I was taught in school was not working. And so over the years, it took me about 12 years, but I had to develop something based on the observations that I made from treating one client to the next. So I had to literally come up with something that could produce the results, but it was still within the industry. Now, the way our industry works is we are asked to do continuing education 24 hours every 2 years. The thing is that we have now a lot of people teaching continuing education, but you go for a weekend class or you go for a 12-hour class and you come back out and you really just went to get your hours. Most people do. Most people don't really go in to learn something different to see how they could expand what they have. So I had a kind of a little bit different situation than just starting a business from scratch. But I took an already existing idea and improved upon it. And I didn't mention this before, but I think I told you my background, I'm Indian. And Indian in their culture, Indians, East Indians, they actually have massage as a part of their culture where they massage a baby as soon as it's born or they do abdominal work. So I thought that was massage. But when I went through school, I realized that it's so much more than that. But yet there still needed some improvement in what we learned in school. So we are seeing more and more coming out in our industry that people are being able to use. We have people now making six-figure incomes as a massage therapist, which was unheard of in old times, older when I started 22 years ago. But it's really good that we have the opportunity to do that. I thank God that I didn't have to start from scratch, because I don't know if I would have done that or not effectively. But anyway, it helped me. What your advice helped me to really bring it out, and I'm now in the process of really expanding the idea. We have a couple minutes left, and I'd like to just briefly, is there anything that you want to add to what you've already said that you think is important for the business owner that is listening?
Yeah, I think I'd like to just expand just for a moment on what you just talked about, school and continuing education and that sort of thing. What you just described is so true in the business world. I mean, school is really designed for a sort of a way of giving us basics, maybe not so much to make us successful, but to give us enough food for thought, give us some ideas to work with. The rest of it, you're going to have to do on your own or learn on your own as you go. The other part of the continuing education, like you described, is a complaint that we hear often. There's schools now that have cropped up all over the place, have made an industry out of offering continuing education. But when you come out of those classes 9 times out of 10, you don't remember anything you learned. And very rarely do they give you a lot of handout material that you can go back and refer to. Some do, a lot of them don't. So you're always forced to keep spending money, spending money, spending money. Now, I'm not so sure I'd want to be in that kind of a business, but it's a valid business. It's a required business for most industries, so you don't have a choice there. But I think the key here is to get enough education under your belt so that when you start working with clients, that will help you bring your knowledge to the next level.
We're going to invite you back next week. So I want to thank you for listening. Join us next week for another episode of Jadu Lifestyle, where you get a life and live it too.